Amid the cold corridors of Wall Street and the memories of a mother who cleaned offices at night, a young man must decide whether the price of success is worth paying. What he chooses will change everything and reveal that some values are priceless. The smell of cleaning products permeated the air as Mary Harris scrubbed the shiny floor of the large empty office. Her calloused hands, marked by years of hard work, moved with determination. Out of the corner of her eye, she watched her son Daniel, just 16 years old, bent over economics books in the corner of the room. "Daniel, it's almost midnight. Shouldn't you be sleeping?" The teenager lifted his eyes from the books, his face illuminated by the small portable lamp he always carried. "I need to finish this chapter, Mom. The test is tomorrow." Mary smiled, feeling that mix of pride and worry only mothers know. She straightened her aching back and walked over to her son, leaving wet footprints on the floor she had just cleaned. "Son, do you know why I work so hard?" she asked, placing her hand on the young man's shoulder. Daniel nodded. "So that I can study and have opportunities you didn't have." "Yes, but it's not just that." Mary knelt down, even though her knees protested. "I want you to succeed. But never forget one thing. Never barter your soul. Not for all the money in the world." Daniel kept those words in his heart, not knowing that they would shape his destiny. 18 years later, Daniel Harris adjusted his Italian tie in front of the mirror in the corporate bathroom. At 29, he was the youngest financial analyst to own his own office at Reynolds & Partners, one of the most prestigious investment firms on Wall Street. The tailored suit hid the sleepless nights and the constant stress that were part of the routine. The phone vibrated in his pocket, showing a message from Victor Reynolds, his boss. "Meeting with Smith & Gray investors in 20 minutes. Bring the quarterly projections." Daniel took a deep breath. This was an important account, one that could either solidify his position or break his career. He knew the numbers weren't exactly promising, but he had worked on an honest presentation showing the challenges and real possibilities. As he exited the bathroom, his eyes landed on the small framed photo on his desk. His mother, Mary, in her cleaner's uniform, proudly smiling on his graduation day. She hadn't lived to see him get this far. A cancer had taken her 3 months before Daniel received his diploma. "I miss you," he murmured, touching the frame with his fingertips. The office buzzed with the frantic energy typical of Wall Street. Analysts ran between desks, phones rang incessantly, and screens displayed red and green numbers that changed by the second. "Harris!" Victor Reynolds' voice echoed down the hallway. Tall, impeccably dressed, with gray hair at the temples that lent him an air of authority, Victor was known both for his business acumen and his unpredictable temper. "The reports are ready, sir," Daniel replied, handing over a folder. Victor skimmed through the documents, his face contorting in disgust. "Is this the best you can do? These numbers will scare the investors away." "They are the real numbers, Mr. Reynolds. We had a downturn last quarter, but I have a strategy too." "I don't care." Victor cut him off, shoving the folder back into Daniel's hands. Opening his own briefcase, he pulled out another set of papers. "Use this. I've reviewed and adjusted it to appear more attractive." Daniel examined the new documents and felt a knot in his stomach. Those numbers were completely fabricated. They forecasted impossible profits and omitted obvious risks. "So, this doesn't reflect the reality of the company. We're promising returns we can't deliver." Victor leaned in, lowering his voice to a threatening whisper. "Listen well, Harris. Do you think you got here because of some extraordinary talent? Don't be naive. You're here because I saw potential in you. And part of that potential is understanding how the game is played." The meeting room was packed when they entered. Men and women in impeccable suits, expensive watches, and calculated expressions waited. Daniel recognized the key directors of Smith & Gray but also noticed an elegant lady sitting discreetly in the corner, looking somewhat out of place with the usual crowd. Her gray hair was tied in a perfect bun, and her keen eyes seemed to assess each person in the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," Victor began with his rehearsed smile, "we are pleased to present the quarterly results and our projections. Our analyst, Mr. Harris, will lead the presentation." Daniel felt the weight of those words. His gaze briefly landed on his mother's photo, which he discreetly kept on the last page of his planner. "Never trade your soul," she used to say. The words echoed in his mind as if Mary were there. He stood, adjusted his tie, and looked at the falsified documents in front of him, then at the expectant faces of the investors, and finally at Victor, who watched him with a confident smile, certain of his obedience. "Ladies and gentlemen," Daniel began, his voice steadier than expected, "thank you all for being here." He paused, his heart racing. "Unfortunately, I cannot proceed with this presentation. The numbers I was given are falsified and do not reflect the company's reality." The ensuing silence was deafening. Victor paled, then his face turned crimson with rage. "Mr. Harris is clearly confused," Victor intervened, forcing a laugh. "Perhaps the stress." "I am not confused," Daniel continued, maintaining his composure. "I have the real data here with me. It shows challenges, yes, but also genuine opportunities. I prefer to present the truth and discuss real solutions rather than sell a fantasy that would eventually harm us all." Victor stood abruptly. "Harris, you're fired. Security, please escort Mr. Harris out of the building. Now." As two men in dark suits approached, Daniel remained dignified. He picked up his briefcase, looked at the investors, and simply said, "I apologize for the disruption. I regret not being able to serve you with integrity in this company." As he departed, he noticed the gray-haired lady observing him with an inscrutable expression. For a moment, their eyes met, and Daniel thought he saw a slight nod of approval. The following weeks were a nightmare. His savings, already scant due to the high cost of living, dwindled rapidly. The small apartment in Queens, once a symbol of achievement, now felt like a prison as he desperately searched for another job. Doors closed before they even opened. Victor Reynolds had contacts throughout the financial district, and the story that Daniel was emotionally unstable and unable to handle pressure spread quickly. On one particularly tough night, sitting on the edge of the bed with the last overdue rent notice, Daniel held his mother's photo. The rain pounded the windows, creating a perfect soundtrack for his despair. "Was it worth it, Mom?" he whispered to the picture. "Being honest is destroying me. Maybe you were wrong." A tear fell onto the frame's glass. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. Probably another debt collector, he thought, but he answered nonetheless. "Mr. Harris, this is Evelyn Carter." The voice was clear, decisive. "We met briefly at Reynolds and Partners." Daniel tried to recall. The gray-haired lady at the meeting. A light laugh on the other end. "Exactly. Can we meet tomorrow? I have a proposal that might interest you." The next day, Daniel waited nervously in a discreet cafe away from the financial district. He had worn his last clean, pressed shirt but felt completely out of place. Evelyn Carter arrived punctually. Elegantly yet discreetly dressed, she seemed to carry an aura of natural authority. "Mr. Harris," she extended her hand. "Thank you for coming. Please, call me Daniel." They sat down, and after ordering coffee, Evelyn was direct. "I was in the room when you refused to present falsified numbers. It was an act of courage we rarely see on Wall Street." Daniel smiled wryly. "Courage that left me unemployed and about to be evicted." "Temporarily," she replied confidently. "Do you know who I am, Daniel?" He shook his head. "I'm one of the founders of the Carter Investment Group. I started my career in the 80s when women on Wall Street were almost invisible. I survived not just by competence but by integrity." She sipped her coffee. "I know well the feeling of standing alone against the system." Gradually, over cups of coffee, Daniel shared his story. The cleaning woman who sacrificed everything, the nights studying while she cleaned offices, the promise he held in his heart. "She told me never to trade my soul," Daniel concluded, his voice choked. Evelyn nodded, understanding. "Your mother was a wise woman, and you honored her sacrifice when everything conspired for you to do otherwise." She opened her briefcase and pulled out an elegant invitation. "The annual Investors Conference is next week. I want you to be there." Daniel looked at the invitation with skepticism. "For what? No one will listen to me." "Trust me," Evelyn smiled. "Sometimes truth is a curious way of opening doors we thought were locked forever." The grand hall of the financial center was dazzling. Crystal chandeliers reflected golden lights over hundreds of people representing power and influence in the financial world. Daniel, wearing the only suit he hadn't had to sell, felt like an intruder. He sat quietly at the back, observing as presentations and speeches unfolded on the stage. Victor Reynolds was there, of course, radiating confidence as he chatted with investors. "It's going to be okay," Evelyn whispered, materializing beside him before heading to the VIP area. The president of the Investors Association took the stage for the main address. Daniel half listened, lost in thoughts about how he would pay next month's rent. Then, suddenly, he heard his name. "We would like to invite Mr. Daniel Harris to the stage." A confused silence filled the hall as everyone looked around, searching for the unknown person. Daniel sat motionless, certain there was some mistake. But Evelyn, in the front row, turned and waved at him with an encouraging smile. With trembling legs, Daniel made the long walk to the stage, feeling hundreds of eyes following him. Victor Reynolds, at the main table, choked on his drink upon recognizing him. The president of the association shook his hand firmly. "Mr. Harris, a few weeks ago, you refused to present fraudulent numbers at a Reynolds and Partners meeting, even knowing it would cost you your job." Daniel nodded, unsure of what to say. "What you didn't know is that Ms. Evelyn Carter was there as part of an informal investigation into ethical practices at top firms. Your action did not go unnoticed." Evelyn stood and walked up to the stage. "In a world where the truth is often the first casualty in the pursuit of profit, we need to celebrate and reward integrity. Therefore, I am pleased to announce the creation of the Harris Ethical Investment Fund, with initial capital of $20 million. Daniel blinked, incredulous. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." "This fund," Evelyn continued, "will be managed by you, supported by a board of the country's top independent investors. Our mission will be to prove that profitability and ethics are not mutually exclusive." The room erupted in applause. From his seat, Victor Reynolds watched in disbelief as various investors from that fateful meeting now approached to shake Daniel's hand. "But why?" Daniel managed to ask when he finally found his voice. Evelyn smiled. "Because Wall Street doesn't just need smart people, it needs people with integrity. And because your mother was right, never trading your soul isn't just the right thing to do, it's the greatest investment one can make in oneself." A year later, the Harris Fund's office occupied an entire floor in a modern building. Daniel, now CEO, kept on his desk the same photo of his mother in the cleaning uniform, along with a small bottle of cleaning product, to never forget his roots. The door opened and Evelyn entered, carrying reports. "This quarter's results exceeded all expectations," she announced. "The market is finally realizing that ethics and profit can go hand in hand." Daniel smiled, recalling the journey. "You know, sometimes I still wake up thinking it's all a dream. That I'll return to that rainy night in my apartment, jobless, hopeless." Evelyn rested a hand on his shoulder. "It isn't a dream, Daniel. It's the result of a difficult choice made at the right time." That night, alone in his office, Daniel picked up his mother's photo. "You were right, Mom," he said softly. "Keeping my soul intact was the best business I ever made." Outside, Wall Street's lights shone as always, but for Daniel Harris, they now illuminated a different path, one where success was measured not just by numbers on a screen, but by the reflection he saw every morning in the mirror.